I think as 3D modelers, we all want to get to that point where we could effectively model that supercar. But before we tackle that Lambo, we have to face the level 1 sub-boss, the soda can. When we're first starting a 3D model in Maya, it can be a challenge to find those first models to tackle. We want to select a model that's easy enough for us to complete and not get stuck, but challenging enough where we learn new techniques and we feel proud of the model that we created. A soda can is one of those models. It has a simple silhouette, yet enough details at the top to pose a challenge if you're first starting a 3D model. So I picked out the model, I created the tutorial, I even did the blueprints for you. You want to get better at 3D modeling, right? So let's get to work. Crank up Maya and follow along in this Maya modeling tutorial for beginners. What's going on, you 3D modeling beasts? This is jlmussi and welcome to my Maya modeling tutorial for beginners. So how this video came about is my boy Josh Lewis, another JL, came through in the comments section and asked for a step-by-step tutorial on 3D modeling a simpler object. So that got my brain spinning a little bit and I thought about that soda can. So I started to search for blueprints online. I wanted to find high-res blueprints that we would be able to stick in the viewport without any shadows, highlights, or distracting information, and we could follow along with the shape and the contours of that soda can. Couldn't find any, so I bust out Adobe Illustrator and I created my own. So your boy JL is putting in some work. And if you guys have any ideas for future videos, don't hesitate to drop them in the comment section down below. As you can see, I do get ideas from you guys on the next set of videos to create next. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and start. The first thing that you need to do is create a project and then put the blueprints image in the source images directory of Maya. That's basically where when you try to load up the image planes, that's where Maya will try to source it. And then you will go to project window. And you see that I already created it. So you got to hit new here and just name the project whatever you want. And then all these folders, you probably won't use them unless you're doing a huge production. In our case, we won't. But we'll go ahead and just hit accept, and then it'll create that project structure and just make sure the blueprints are in the source images folder. So I'm gonna go here and jump to my 4 views. I'll go ahead and expand the front, and then I'll go to view, image plane, import image, and there you see that our image blueprint is there. And that's where Maya is looking in the source images. So we'll go ahead and select the image, hit open, and there it is. So just as a rule of thumb, I like to basically have my objects below the ground plane and actually centered. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll enable my gizmo and I'll go ahead and make sure that this is on the ground. And then I'm going to move this over. And I'm going to make sure that this is almost pretty much in the middle. So that looks about right. And then we'll jump over to the top view, which is right here. I'm hitting spacebar to jump in and out of the windows. And I'll do the same thing. So I'll go to view, image plane, import image, get the blueprint, hit open. And there it is. Now I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the top. So something that could happen is when you're working, sometimes like if we're here or we zoomed in and we want to get the gizmo, we could actually move our gizmo. If we hit the D key, it will allow us to move our pivot. So I'm actually just going to move that pivot of the image plane closer to this. I'll hit the W key to enable move, and then now you see that I'm actually moving the image from that pivot point, which is kind of handy. especially when you close in. I'm going to create a volume to make sure that the top and the side are actually lined up. I'm not going to use this to model, but just make sure that everything lines up the way it should before I begin to create the model. So I'm going to go to create polygon primitives. I'll create a cylinder, and here I have this hotkey as Alt-Y. So from now on, I'm just going to hit my hotkey, but anytime that you have to create a cylinder, you can go and do it via the menus this way as well. So here it is. Same thing with my verts. Usually you just right click to select your vertices or components. I just have verts hotkeyed to the number 1 on my keyboard. So I'm going to just expand this, go to object mode, which I have hotkeyed as well, but you can right click and go to object mode if you need to. Enable the scale tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and scale this down a little bit. And what we could also do is, if you ever have the height basically where you want it, let me actually do that first. So I'm just going to line this up, right? So for a long time, I didn't know that basically these little blue dots here actually constrain what axes you're working in. So if we take this and we want to make it wider and we just scale up, you see that we're getting the width that we want, but the height that we don't. So I'm going to undo this, and what we could do is just grab it from here. So with this little box, it's going to do, it's going to let us work in the X and the Z, but leave the Y alone. So it's kind of nifty to be able to just go in here, and now we're scaling while constraining to those two axes. So that looks good. So now what we can do is, we don't want this to be visible in the 3D viewport. We're primarily just going to use our orthographics for this. So what we could do is go in here and we'll go to show, and we'll take off image planes, right? So in our perspective view, the image planes are not visible. So here, we don't want them selectable, right? Because oftentimes we're working here, we're selecting this, and that could be a pain. So usually what I do with the image planes here, I'm going to go to classic. I'll select this first one here. Actually, I should be able to select both. So I'll shift click, select both layers. I'm sorry, both image planes. I'll go to layers and create layer from selected. And then here, I'll just go ahead and name this ref for reference. Save this, and then I'll go ahead and take off the selectability by setting this to the R, which means a reference. So now if we deselect and try to select this, we can't, right? We can't select this one or this one. So that's ultimately the setup that we want, and our geometry is still selectable. All right, so something I want to talk about real quick is, I noticed that there was a little bit of pixelation going on in the image. So if what Maya tries to do is save resources or clamp down your texture resolution, and if you have a higher res image like we do here, then if you're seeing some pixelation on your image planes, what you can do is go to render, and then if you're using viewport 2.0, which I recommend, you can go to the option box here, and if we take this down to like a low value, so let's just do that, and then you see how it gets blurred. So this image, like the widest resolution, it's about almost 4,000. So I'm gonna put in 4,000 here, and I'll hit select, and there we go. So we sharpened this up, so that should clear up some of the pixelation that you're getting on your image plane. So I'm going to go ahead and start off from the top. This area has a little bit more detail, and then the body is going to be kind of a little bit simpler. So this is going to have more geometry here. So I'll start out with this. I also have my can right here that I'll be kind of looking at down from time to time. So and I recommend you just finding a can to just visually have, right? And that way you can see the shapes a little bit better. But I'm going to go ahead and start and just really examine this shape. And I'm going to look at this, and I know that I'm going to need a round shape here, right? So I'll go ahead and go to Create, Polygon Primitive, and I'll get my cylinder. And then I'll go ahead and move it here, right? And I'll go ahead and scale it. And looking at the divisions here, this should have 20. Right, that's kind of what Maya defaults to. So I'm gonna go ahead and plop them down here. So you see that we're getting this nice follow through here with the shape, and then these points right here are the only ones that we have to tweak. And right about here, it's gonna be about 10. I'm just really thinking about how all the math is going to basically fan out. But actually, I think I like the number of divisions here. So let's do a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and take this. I'll hold down Tab, and I'll go ahead and paint these faces here. I'll go to Select, and then we could inverse the selection and delete. So this is all we really need to start modeling this piece. So here, I'll enable my verts. And what I'll actually do is I'll hit D again, V to vert snap. And sometimes it could be finicky. So there we go. I'll just click on the vert instead of trying to drag out. And then I'll enable scale again. And what I'll do from here is I'll go ahead and just kind of nudge it out the way a little bit. And I'm really just trying to get this curvature to follow. So on this last vert, I'm going to take this and then just move it and right there. So we have that nice curve already pretty much done with polygons. So from here, I'll go ahead and take this edge. I'll do a Control E, which is extrude. So if you want to go via the menus, it is right there under Edit Mesh, Extrude. And then I'll go ahead and hit W and just drag out. And I'll go right about here where this starts to curve again. And then I'll get this vert and I'll put it right about here. So what we could do is I'll do Alt Y, which is going to create another cylinder. But this shape is a little bit bigger, right? So we probably want to use a little bit more subdivisions. So I'm going to go back to 36, kind of evaluate the shape. So let's go ahead and drag this out. And that looks pretty good. And then I'll go ahead and kind of scale it this way. So I'm getting that nice curvature right about here. So we'll do the same thing. So I'll go to my face mode. I'll hold down Tab and I'll go ahead and paint this little section here. And then I'll go to Select. And then we'll do Inverse and delete the rest, right? So now, all we have to do is pretty much combine this. Well, we do have a little bit of a curvature here, which I didn't get, but we'll go ahead and manually place that. So I'm going to go ahead and select this object and this object, and we'll go to Mesh and Combine. And I have this as Control minus Control plus to separate. So I'll be doing that from now on, but you could do it if you need to do that. It's under the mesh. So we'll go Mesh Combine. We'll go ahead and select these two edges here. I'll shift and right click, and then I'll go to Bridge, right? So it bridged those two faces right there. Here we go. So under Mesh Tools, Multi-Cut. All right, so I got the multi-cut. So what we can do here is I want to drop this edge loop right in the middle. So with the multi-cut enabled, if you hold down Control, you can see that we're able to drop a loop. And if we middle mouse click, we drop it in the middle of those two edges. So now I'll go to vert mode, move this vert here, and get that curvature. And looks like we could do this again. So I'll hit M. I'll do the same thing, middle mouse click while holding out Alt, middle mouse click while holding out Alt. Go in here and what I want to do is actually do this at the same time because I want to be as precise as possible. All right, so here, looking at this shape, what I want to do essentially is pull an edge from here and push it backwards. Now, there's a couple things we could do. One of them is basically this. So we'll go ahead and just get this edge loop here. Because this inner geometry here with the poles, it can become an issue. So I'm just adding to my selection here. And now that I have this edge, I can go ahead and just extrude out. Oops. So I want to go ahead and play with the offset. If you're finding your values are jumping around too much, you can hit down Control on your keyboard, and that will get you, you know, a more incremental change. It'll actually go up or down slower if you hold down Control and scrub left to right. Pretty much just gut this out for the time being. So we're going to delete these faces. And then I'll go here and select this edge loop, shift click, select this guy here. And now we can do another extrude. And we'll play with the offset and we'll go in this way. And now we have that perfect thickness. And now what we want to do is start building out this shape right here, right? This cut, that's actually where the soda can is open. So what we could do is we could try to basically use these edges here. And if we really wanted to on this, we could nudge this to get her to better kind of hug this curve. So what I'll do is I'll select both of these edges. And we could just move randomly, but I'd rather use this edge to actually move. So I'll hit D on my keyboard to enable my pivot edit. And then you see that we have an align button or align symbol come up. So if we just go ahead and we can go ahead and align it this way. Or what we could do is if we hold down Control, you see it changes the orient. So now if we click this edge, now we're oriented to this edge right here. Now we can go to move and we'll just go ahead and push this way. And you see how nice that movement is. And we'll go ahead and repeat the same thing for this one. So we'll hit D again. We'll hold down Control and then we'll click orient on that edge. We'll hit W to enable the move tool. And then we'll go ahead and move it right there. And we're right there where we need to be. Okay, so what we're going to do next is pretty much build out this hole right here. So what I did essentially is, and let's make this a little bit easier on the eyes. So I'll go 5 here to turn on wireframe. I'm sorry, just shaded mode. But I'll go to shading and enable X-ray, right? So it allows us to see kind of the underneath blueprints. With this 36-sided cylinder, I basically just squished it a little bit, and now we're pretty much capturing this curvature from this line right here that goes underneath this tab. So what I'll do is I'll select this right here, and then I'll select this edge here. And what we could actually do is select, hold down tab, paint these faces here, and then I'll select the inverse, delete. This is all we really need. So from here, I'll just select right about this range. And now I can just extrude, move down, and pretty much align this up here. Okay, so what we could do is just jump down to vert mode and just kind of nudge these to better match that curvature. And I'll put this guy here. Now, let's look at the smooth preview. So that looks pretty good. And we're not really worried about this geometry here because it will pretty much be deleted at some point. So now what I'll do is Let's actually step back here a second, and we want to go ahead and make sure that we have enough divisions here and here to match up. So, and I just enabled wireframe on shaded, and that way we could always look at the wireframes from this point. So what I'll do here is I'll select this this edge here, select this range, and it looks like we're about 15. And what I want to do here is I want to just delete this edge here and this edge here, and that way we have some better polygon spacing, right? And we are going to use sub Ds, so we really don't need to have a lot, excessive amounts of geometry here. So now let's run back the math, select this range. To enable this poly count, you just go to display, heads up display, and then you enable the poly count option. All right, so here, forgot what the number was, but it looks like we are at 13. So we need to be 13 here as well. So here we are 7. So we need to add a couple of edges here. So that's what I'll do. So I add one here. Just add one here in the middle, middle, and middle. And we are. All right. So that looks good. So now from this point, we'll just take these verts and then just match them up. All right, so I'm happy with this shape here. So what we could essentially do is gut this out as well, right? So now we have a nice little base for us to extrude out and connect. So what we want to do is let's actually just take a look at how this is looking in 3D. And if you have this, don't freak out. This is actually a very simple fix. We'll go ahead and start out by combining this. We'll select all the verts, and then we'll go ahead and scale. And we'll just scale flat on the Y, and now this is flat. And since we did it on one axis, we won't have any distortion. From here, what we could do is select this edge here, and we can go ahead and select this edge here, which is 13. And then we should have 26, which we do. So we'll shift and right click, and we'll go to bridge, and it should connect these. I like how this is looking, so I'll go ahead and select. And before I delete this, I do need to pull out this edge here. So I'll select all of these guys here, and I'll do Control E and then W to move, and I can just go ahead and do this. And I'll do this here, and then I'll take this guy and kind of move it here. And I'll leave that as is for now. And then I'll just take a couple ways you can go about it, but I'm just going to go ahead and drag marquee. Actually, no. I'm going to go here, select this edge loop here, deselect, select this. So detach this as well. And now we can just go ahead and delete this. So we'll go ahead and insert edge loop here with the multi-cut. We'll take these verts and combine it. And now we want to think about filling this gap right here, right? So what we could do is first start to bring these guys down. So we'll take these edges. I'll go ahead and extrude, and once I extrude, I just like to enable my move tool. That way I can just move down, scale, flat, move down again. Vert mode, take this vert, hold down V, boom, and just take those two verts and merge down, all right? We'll do the same thing. We'll move up, and then we'll go ahead and scale flat. And then I'll hold down, or I'll hit D, hold down V, snap here, scale tool, and then do something like this, right? So now we have a little bit of an issue because we have more geometry from here, and then we're going here, right? So what can we do? Well, let's see. So here we have 4 edges, and then we have going into what? 8. Look at that math. That worked out pretty good. It usually doesn't, but I guess I lucked out, right? So what we're going to have to do is actually just use a reduce method, and we're going to use the help of what I call diamond junctures, which realistically, we could just do whatever here. But since I got to show you guys the right way to model, I'm going to try to keep this quadrant as much as possible. But since it's in a flat area, we could technically have tries. But I'm going to show you this because there might be instances where you are trying to keep all quads. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and get a edge loop here. And go ahead and put this here as well. We'll take these verts here, and then we'll merge them. So now what I could do is take these 3 verts here, and I can go ahead and merge this one down, right? So now, if we look at this, we condense this down, and then if we delete this, we have a quad here, but we got rid of those other edges, right? But I'm gonna take these 2 and run that there, and then edge and delete. What I just did is basically I just flattened some of these edges and played around with the spacing. So for example, if you want to flatten certain components out, you can just, let's just do this and do this. So if you select all the edges or the components, you can go ahead and scale flat. Now I do have slide on. Let me just take that off, and you see that these edges are now flat. So that's one option. You could also come here and enable your slide option. So let me undo this, right? So if you wanted to move maybe this edge here, which I've been doing as well, right? And kind of keep this angle, you could use the slide function as well, right? So you have edge and then you have surface. One's going to respect the surface versus the edge constraints. All right, so that's all I pretty much did, and now that's all nice quadded, and the spacing is a little bit better. If I hit 3 key, you see that this shape is actually holding up pretty nice. So I like how that's looking on working. So now the next task is going to be going from this shape to a perfectly cylindrical one that's right around here, kind of the start of this darker border, which is just a recess in the can. So we're going to need to take a little bit of edge information, and this is 23 edges, which we probably want at least even-sided. So let's go with 24. So what we can do in this case is just take this edge here, and we'll just bevel this, and it's kind of breaking this up, so I'm not going to bevel. What I'm going to do is I'll take the insert edge loop or the multi-cut tool, add a loop there, and then just kill this middle one. And if I wanted to, I could just enable edge slide if I wanted. And then just, sorry, edge, not surface. There we go. So let's just slide this one over, and then slide this one over. And now we should have a nice even number, which is 24. That's actually perfect. So we'll go ahead and create a cylinder. And by the laws of math, we need 48 here, right? Because 48 by that half is going to give us the 24 that we're looking for. So I'll butt this here. And then what I'll do is I'll just take my tab tool and make sure that I'm on faces. I'll hold down tab, paint half of the cylinder, Control-Shift-I, delete, go on wireframe, right? So now we can go ahead and select this edge here, select and of course it's going to go the other way. But what I'll do is I'll just select all the edges, deselect these, Control E, and usually when I work with cylinders, sometimes I rather keep the whole thing here. Now this does have, it is a cylinder, so it's going to have that part, right? But what I'll do is just select the cap and then delete this, go back in here. Now we have some edges that we can play with. So I'll select these, Control E, and play with the thickness, right? So I'll go here, we'll get that nice thickness to that edge, and now we have something that we could combine here, all right? Now, what we want to do is go back to object mode, and we want to go ahead and delete this as well. And we just want to be left with this ring, and something funky's going on here. So yeah, just the normals are inversed, but that's not a big deal. We'll select this here, and then we'll go to mesh display and then reverse, and there we go. All right. So the other thing we can do is just combine these and make sure that I'm on object mode. Go back to verts, take them, and then we can just, I'm going to turn edge slide off, and then scale. Now they're on the same plane, and this is going to be pretty easy, or hopefully somewhat easy to actually combine. So I'm not going to bridge here. What I'll do is I'll take this here, vert snap here, vert snap here, vert snap here, and vert snap here, and then I'll shift click and go ahead and merge those. And then I'll manually pretty much do these here as well. So I could do target weld, so I'll show you that tool, which can be handy for cases like this. So we'll take target weld, and then we'll go back to expert. Just like the I like how that sounds. Makes me feel like a man. No, I like the extra I guess workspace, especially, and if you have a bunch of hotkeys set, you really don't need the other mode. So target weld is doing its thing here. All right, so we're making some nice progress, and what I actually did here is I did kind of space some of these out a little bit more after the target weld. Now what we can go ahead and do is, obviously we need to delete kind of the extra fluff here, because we're just going to end up mirroring this anyways. And if you could tell, what I'm doing is I'm just worrying about getting the edge loops, the clean edge loops around the borders, or just where the major shifts in the form are going to be, and then I'll worry about shaping it in the Y axes, right? So let's go ahead and just finish this out. This should be a bit easier now that we're pretty much here, and I'm going to leave this here because I like to have this when I extrude out. So we're going to do an extrude, and then we'll go ahead and add an offset here. Just do an extrude here. I'll do another extrude, play with the offset here, and it looks like it's about halfway through. So I'll go ahead and hold down Control, middle mouse click, and there it is. So now that I have that, let's start shaping this, okay? So I'm gonna go here, and now what I could do is, I think I could get rid of this, so I'll just take this, and I'll take this here, detach the components, select and delete, and let's go ahead and do a mirror on this. And if you see this pinching here, this is because of the poly mirror. So let me bring the channel box here. This merge threshold's way too high, so 0.01 should fix that. So anytime that you do a mirror, I strongly recommend that you keep that on a very low threshold there. All right, so let's move on with the show. So we're going to start adding some height to this can. So I'm going to select this edge loop here, and I'll jump over to my front view here, and I'll go ahead and do an extrude. And I'm just going to move this down here, and then I'll go ahead and scale out to about here. And then I'll do another extrusion, get my translate tool, and I'm pretty much just working in extremes here. And I'll go back and add the added geometry. So we'll put an edge here, we'll extrude again, and we'll go ahead and drop it about here. What we could do is just enable our move tool, and besides scaling, we could just do control and middle mouse, and that's going to push and pull along our normals. So essentially it's going to give us something similar to a scale. The other option that we could do is we could leave this here and then just leave a hard edge and then just apply a bevel. And that's probably what I'll do in a second. So I'll go here, I'll hold down control, middle mouse click, taper this in, extrude again, W key, same thing, control and middle mouse click and scrub. And we have pretty much the shape that we want. So here, let's go ahead and go on the back side of the can. And so it's pretty simple. It just has a lip and then kind of a dome. So I just did an extrude here, and then I can just get the scale tool and just scale inward. I'll do another extrude. I'll extrude up. Is before I do that, I'm going to give myself some more breathing room. So I'll go ahead and undo that. So I'll push this here because I'm going to bevel this and I want more room. This bevel is pretty extreme. So I want this hard, or this cap here, to be on the smaller side. So we'll do the extrude and then shift and right click, merge collapse, merge to center. Now we can take this edge here and then we can do a bevel. So that's under mesh, that's under edit mesh, and then bevel. I'm just going to do it via my hotkey, and I'm going to drag this way, and then I can shift and right click and get some more divisions. So I'm going to get my multi-cut and then do control and just add some reinforcing edges here. Same thing here. I'll add one there. And then let's go ahead and take this here. And I'm going to go ahead and enable my soft select, which is right here. And then I'm going to dial this down a little bit. And then I'm just going to drag this down. So I want to make this a little bit more shallow. And just getting a feel for this, it looks like we're about right about here. So now I'm just going to go and if we smooth this, we need to hold this edge up a bit more. So what I'll do is select this, take off soft select. I'm going to go ahead and bevel this as well. So I'll go ahead and add extra divisions there. And what I could do is just move this on its normal. It's going to give me something similar to scaling. There we go. So we probably want to maybe add a bevel here. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. And now I'll just select this edge here and I'll move it up. And there we go. So we're getting that nice curvature. We could probably come in here as well. And this edge here looks like it probably needs another loop right about here. So I'll take my multi-cut. I'll take my multi-cut here and then middle mouse click and double click this. And same thing, I'll take my move tool and then I'll just push and pull on the normal, which is control middle mouse clicking. And now if we smooth this, we're getting some nice curvature. I do want to hold this bottom a little bit better, so I got to drop a couple more edges. So if we go here, what we could do is just get the multi-cut again, drop that in, and then push and pull along the normal. Maybe we'll go ahead and drop this down here. Now we already have an edge loop here, so we can go ahead and push and pull along the normal there. And let's see how we're looking. So I think we need one more edge here. So multi-cut again, and then push and pull along the normal. And we could do one more here. So something that we could do as well is just insert the edge flow option, and then that's going to push and pull along the normal for us. So we got this curvature here, and then we got to pretty much repeat it for this. So before we push and pull this ring out, I'm going to go ahead and start getting this ridge in because this actually has kind of a curving shape upward towards that lip. So we'll go ahead and do Control E. We'll go ahead and move this guy down, right? We got that little crevice in there. And then it does have a bit of a roundingness, so I'll go ahead and do Control B to bevel. And then it looks like a hard bevel there. So what I can do is take my multi-cut, and then we'll go ahead and just add a edge loop there, and we'll add one there. And then we also got to reinforce these edges here. So what we could do is, if we wanted a hard crease, we could select that edge loop and that edge loop, do Control B, put this in a bit tighter, and then shift right click left and right. And now this should look pretty good. All right. So now we have this shape, and now we got to worry about the lip going upward. So the way this lip works is it looks like it pretty much fans out, and then you have somewhat of a curvature. So we'll add an edge here, and this will allow us to get closer to the shape. So now I'll select this edge, enable the move tool, and then I'll go ahead and push out this way. All right. And technically this kind of curves on itself. So if you really wanted to get fancy with this, and we love fancy in this channel, some edge loops here as well. So we'll add one here, and then we'll add one here and here. And we're just going to round these out. All right, so we'll get some curvature here. And looking at this, there's a hard lip here. So what I could do is here towards the bottom, just enable my multi-cut again. And then add just a little bit of a gap. All right, so now I'm going to drop an edge loop here and an edge loop here. And then what I could do with this, so I'll just select this edge loop here. I'll do an extrude. I'll just hit the W key, and then I'll go up slightly. Go ahead and add another edge loop about here. And then we'll go ahead and push out just a little bit. All right, so continue to working on this lip. There's a bit of an angle here, so I'm going to push this up here. Double click. We'll go ahead and bevel this, so that should hold up. Now go in here, and we want a harder edge, so we'll go ahead and push this down a little bit. Now we got 3 edges there, and then this guy is a more rounder edge. So what we could do is select these, Control B, kind of push out, and that looks pretty good. I'll go here to my tools, and I want to enable symmetry for selection. So symmetry, we'll do world, and then this should be good to go. Cool. So best way to probably do this is just with the tab key. I'll paint this. So we got this here. Go ahead and paint this way. So now that it's pushed down, we'll just want to go ahead and reinforce these edges. So I'll add so we'll want to hold up these hard edges here. So we'll just add some edge loops. What I could do too is just go in here, and I want to do these actually as even as possible. So I'm just going to use an extrude, and then we'll go ahead and do 3 divisions. And let's see how this looks. And if you want to see how the light reacts, what you could do is assign a blend. So we'll do new material, and we'll just give it a blend. And that's going to catch some of those specular highlights a little bit better. So before we move on to the tab, I'm just going to go ahead and extrude this down. And we can just go ahead and just play with the thickness here. Just give it a little bit. And then we could also just increase the divisions to 3. And that will go ahead and actually just build in some holding edges for us right in the extrude. So let's see how this looks. So this looks pretty good. So we're going to build this out pretty much how we built out the top of the can. We're going to focus on the kind of the shape, and we'll just extrude outward. So here, we know that we need a perfect radial here. So this is a good starting point. So I'm going to go ahead and get another cylinder, scale it, kind of looking at this shape here. And I think this is going to work real nice. So essentially we're going to match this to this here. So let's look at the resolution here. And 20 feels a little bit skimp on this, even though we are doing sub Ds. So this, yeah, 30 is a bad number, even though it is even. It's not giving us this resolution that we need. So we'll have to tweak this. So I'm going to drop this down. So we'll do 28. We'll do 28 here. Now we have that nice line down the middle. And then we'll do the same thing here. All right. So we're good here and here. So we'll go ahead and go to our face mode. We'll hold down tab. And then we'll just paint this. Select the inverse, delete. And then what we could do from here is extrude outward. So I'm going to go ahead and do just a small strip here. And that way we can just gut this out. So we're left with this shape here. So we'll take this object here. We'll go ahead and duplicate it. So I'll go ahead and scale this and just stop shy of the border. I'll go ahead and put this here. So we'll do an offset and go right up to the border. And now we can start gutting some of this out. So I'm going to delete this. And then I'm going to delete this as well. But what I like to do is I'm going to take this here. And then I'll go ahead and extrude out. So the reason I'm doing that is because if I need to add an edge loop, these poles will prevent me from doing so. But now that we have this edge loop here, I can add edge loops if I need it. But those poles do kind of get in the way. So this needs to be all in the same plane. So what I'll do is I'll combine it. I'll go ahead and take all the verts and then just scale downward. And now we're just nice and flat here. So what I can do is go in here and now start connecting some of these edges. So for this, we have a grand total of 7. So we're looking for 14, which we do. So we'll go ahead and shift and right click, and then we'll go to bridge, and now we're connected there, which looks pretty good. What we could do is flatten this out from this edge. So here I'll just take both or all these edges, enable my my scale, hit D to edit this. So I'm just gonna hold down V, and then I'll snap here. I'll go back to scale, and then I'll scale from that vert, and I'll get a nice straight line. And so I like that. Maybe we need to go a little bit closer here. So we'll probably want to go ahead and also bridge these guys. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Shift right click, and then we'll hit bridge. So now we're good here. And then we could add maybe 1, 2, 3 divisions. So usually in cases like this, I like to just have the shape or just the polygons kind of built out. Even though it might be sloppy here, we'll go ahead and just close this out, and then we'll worry about making it pretty, and I'll quad it. So here, just looking at this flow, we'd probably want some kind of loop or radial nature to it. Maybe if we drop the border edge here, so from here, we'll go ahead and kill this loop, right? We'll delete this, and now we can go in here and reroute this like this, and then here we can just throw this guy here, right? So now we are quadded here. So what we could do in this case is add 1 vert if we really want to be quadded here, right? So we have this, and then we have this as well. And we could actually use this flow a little bit, or this extra geometry, because it's going to help hold up this edge. All right, folks, it's the 4th quarter. Put your money on your boy, because I'm about to take us home. So I pretty much just finished building out the piece. Like I pretty much built the bottom, combined. I did a little bit of edge flow work, and I'm going to go ahead and deselect that. Hit W, hit B. And then what I can do is go to my settings here, and under soft selection, I can dial this down a little bit. There we go. That's almost perfect. All right. So we'll go ahead and taper this down like so. So that looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and kill soft selection. And then I'll manually take this edge here and push and pull along the normal. So that looks pretty good. So I'm happy where that is. And I can take this guy here and kind of do the same and just blend that in a little bit better. All right, so I ended up basically just doing a little bit of tweaks on the verts. And then I ended up just detaching this on the other side, because I will give this thickness. So we'll go ahead and just take this here, extrude, I'll extrude downward. Normals are flipped, but it's all good. We'll take care of that in a second. And then I want to leave a little bit of a gap here. So I'm going to dial this down about here. And now I can just take a double click on my mesh. I'll go to mesh display and then hit reverse, right? So now what I want to do is add a couple of holding edges here to hold its shape. So I'll add one here, and then we have to do the same here as well. So let's add some holding edges here. So I add one here and here. All right, so to finish this off, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make sure that everything is named. So what we should do here is we'll go edit, delete by type history. And then here looks like we're grouped. So we'll just go ahead and shift click these items, middle mouse, drag, click out of this group. Now we can delete the group, and this is going to be, I'll just name this pin. I'll name this one tab, so everything's clean in our scene. The other thing I want to do is I plan on UVing and texturing this. So this is a large span here to have basically no edge loops. Take my multi-cut, so I'll drop a edge loop in the middle here, and then I think we could do another round. So here in the middle, here in the middle, here in the middle, and then here in the middle. I like how that looks. So I assigned a Arnold material, threw in a sky dome, and then threw in an HDR, and that's kind of the this nice little result that you're seeing. So that's the end of the video, folks. I'm super stoked that you were able to come through my channel and spend some time with me getting better at 3D modeling in Maya and putting in some work, researching videos online, and trying to better yourself as a 3D artist is what this channel is all about. So you earned a big fist bump from me. Boom. I'm actually really curious on how these soda cans turn out. So if you're on Facebook or on Instagram and you want to show me your wireframes for this model, you can upload your pictures and tag me at jlmussi. I will also be doing a follow-up tutorial where I go step by step in the process of actually laying out the UVs for the soda can. So make sure you subscribe and smash that notifications button to be notified when that video comes out. So that's all the time I have for you folks. I will catch you next time.